But I think that's pretty much it. So without further ado, I'm going to give it over to Darin Crew and talk about the lower section restoration. And then we'll jump over to Jim Morris and tell us about the update on the upper section, which is pretty much coming to a close. And it's turning out really great. And it's very exciting. So gentlemen, take it over, and happy 50th anniversary to you.
Woohoo! Jones Falls night. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm Darin Crew, Senior Operations Manager at Bluewater Baltimore. Bluewater Baltimore is about clean water and strong communities, and we're trying to get the harbor and back river someday swimmable, fishable. We do monitoring on the Jones Falls, Gwynns Falls tributaries. We do monitoring the harbor. We also do follow up on pollution. We're currently in a lawsuit with the city wastewater treatment plants to get them to clean.
Yep, you know that up here.
Can you hear me? Did you? Okay. And then we also do restoration. I lead our restoration team. We plant trees and help congregations to slow runoff and filter runoff. So we partnered with MDTU on the Jones Falls stream restoration because Jim Gracie loved the Jones Falls and found a great opportunity. Jim Gracie is a pioneer in stream restoration, and he identified this reach, and that's how we got started. So bring up my PowerPoint. And it was a match made in heaven. So this section is right above Lake Roland. Some of you have been there if you go hiking. It's just south of Interstate 83. It started out as a concrete channel of about 600 feet. It had no floodplain access. It did have a nice riparian buffer. But as our previous engineering folks love to do, it conveyed water really quickly. Got hot in the summer, so it was not very conducive to our trout. Didn't have much in-stream habitat, no riffles. It was pretty much a big run with a bunch of algae in it. It's pretty ugly as well, and it was contributing to downstream flooding and erosion because it had no floodplain reconnectivity. So I'm a biologist, so we've got Jim on the call who's more of an engineer. But when Bluewater Baltimore approaches these projects, we're interested in water quality. So we're trying to get the stream to go into the floodplain so that nitrogen, phosphorus, and dirt is trapped. And then we want the stream to process nutrients so that it's treating the watershed flows. The one thing about stream restoration that they typically don't do is, but some do if you get floodplain access, is they're not changing the volume of runoff upstream of the watershed, if that makes sense. But they're helping to slow it down and trap nutrients and sediments as it goes through the system. So we went from a pretty ugly stream that was great at delivering floodwaters downstream and not great habitat to trout. And our goals were to convert it into a stream with natural habitat. It had floodplain, something that would have floodplain access, and something that would also provide habitat for our beautiful brown trout that we're producing in the stream. So we applied for a grant to the Department of Natural Resources back in 2015. I can't remember how the design funds came into play for Jim Gracie. I think that might have been MDTU. Is that correct, Tom? Anyways, we obtained a $600,000 grant. We put out a contract to bid, and Environmental Quality Resources was the contractor we selected. And so they went through and they removed all the riparian trees. They removed all the concrete. You can see the picture to the left, tons of concrete. There was actually some subfooters on the project. And then they started clearing out the floodplain and placing big rock. They had to do this outside of the spawning season, which is March. Jim would know this, March to like June. And so they couldn't work during the spawning season. They had to divert the stream during that time as well. And we ended up with a really nice project that looked like this. And so we've cleared all the trees, but we've gotten great structures for habitat. We've got new riffles, runs, pools. And then what happens is the stream starts to come into equilibrium with its new construction. This is pictured in 2016. I'm on the downstream side of the floodplain opposite Falls Road. So Falls Road's on the other side, and you can see the bridge where Falls Road crosses the Jones Falls. Mm-hmm. If anybody has any questions, please shout out.
I'm just going to add to your comment about design fees. They came from the Chesapeake Bay Trust.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, we had the bay plates, which some of you may have, hopefully most of you have, contributing to the restoration. And then we had state dollars, which was passed by the General Assembly to establish the Chesapeake Bay and Coastal Bays Trust Fund. So then this is just after construction finished. And then we had the floods of 2018. So 2018 was record-setting rainfall at about 70 inches. We had multiple events with bank full height that exceeded. We had the gunpowder, I can remember fishing it, was always at like 200 CFS the whole year. And so we had a little bit of impacts to the restoration, but that's kind of natural. So you see that gouge on the right-hand side, and that's from those continued twice normal rainfall years causing all this flooding to the stream. The one thing that you'll notice is the stream, you can't really tell, but it's starting to fill in a little bit. So the stream's starting to come into its own, because nature in general is an equilibrium. It's in a balance. So rainfall changes, temperatures change, and so the stream is starting to come into its own with the new construction that's holding the bank in place and allowing the flows to come through. It's got great pools and riffles. There's a nice riffle right there. There's a riffle downstream in the picture to the left. And the floodplain starts to, we're starting to see the sycamores established in the floodplain. So now I'm fast forwarding to 2020, and we're starting to see the sycamores come into place. They're in the background on the left. You're starting to see a floodplain form on the right. And right here, if you'll notice, there's a bunch of cottonwood trees, which are really cool, starting to form. We've also got a lot of black willow on the edge of the stream down here that was planted during the construction. It's also starting to take shape. And so it's in really good shape. We are looking at pretty stable conditions. And this is the most recent picture that I've taken. Tom G2 is also on this call, was there today. I've been there as well. And so you can see really the sycamores over here taking off and the black willows. You've got this big floodplain that's formed in the channel. That's a lot of these cottonwoods. It's really starting to form. And this will start putting a lot of wood into the system as well over time as these trees fall down as they get bigger.
Hey, Darin, how
Yeah.
tall do the cottonwoods get? I'm not familiar with those.
Yeah, so cottonwoods, I grew up and my dad's fishing buddy lived on Cottonwood Road, and they're a big canopy tree. They're 60 to 80 feet tall. The sycamores are a big canopy tree as well.
Okay.
So yeah, these are all canopy trees. The black willow that I was mentioning earlier is more of a bushy shrub tree and it's suckers. So you're looking at 10 to 15 feet tall, but they form a really nice dense habitat and they have great root structure for holding soil in place. And then you're probably wondering, well, what happened to the stream itself? It was this concrete channel. Did it have brown trout in it? I don't know. I didn't fish there. But I would assume they moved through there. I don't know if they actually stayed and used it as habitat, because there's no rock for them to hide behind. But DNR, Department of Natural Resources, Mark Staley, who's going to be presenting in January, did 2 different electroshocking runs with his biologist team. And in 2017, we found 4 brown trout ranging from 6 to 8 inches in good health. And we found a number of different minnows, a very diverse assemblage of minnows already: black-nosed dace, round-nosed dace, white sucker, tessellated darter, long-nosed dace, which apparently is not that common, and a silvered tail shiner. By 2020, when they electroshocked again, we were up to 11 brown trout in that stretch, which is pretty cool. So I've been there fishing myself. I've caught some pretty nice trout. We've done macroinvertebrate sampling as well and found mayflies, stoneflies, black flies, a number of bugs. The habitat's really nice. There's this plant at the bottom right that I discovered 2 falls ago, and somebody decided to plant their marijuana plants in the floodplain. So you never know what you're going to find in nature. If you do go there, there's lots of public property along the Jones Falls. I would encourage you to go fishing up and down from that section. I would say there's not a ton of fish, but there are fish in the river and some decent sized fish. So the fish move around depending on the temperatures and the flows and just where the food is, but it's a great place to go and enjoy. So our geomorphologist has been studying the site and he thinks it's in really good shape. He worked with Jim at Brightwater, but he did have some recommendations. Our next steps are to the floodplain itself. The floodplain is in pretty good shape, but the upper section, which is closest to Falls Road, has a number of trees that aren't growing very fast, and we've got some porcelainberry. So we're going to want to watch for invasive species control for the vines. And we're looking at replanting some of those trees to get a little bit more diversity on the upper floodplain, and that'd be the most visible section from Falls Road itself. And then we're hoping to have more events. We've done a macroinvertebrate hunt there before, tree maintenance events, and we'd love to see more folks using the site, going fishing. I hang out there, like if we go running across the way, we'll go running around Lake Roland. I'll come back with my buddies, we'll walk down the stream, have a drink, chill out for a little bit, and just a nice place to sit by the river. So that's the cool stuff we've been doing downstream. And I'll take any questions. And then after that, I think we'll turn it over to Jim.
I'd like to add that this is a very interesting project just in terms of property, because this is a case in point where Baltimore City owns a piece of land in Baltimore County, because at one time Lake Roland was a reservoir. So our right of entry has always been through Baltimore City.
Yes, Baltimore City gave us right of entry. Baltimore County counts it for their pollution reduction credits.
Yeah,
Help the
interesting,
Chesapeake Bay watershed
interesting
goals.
collaboration.
Yep. If you're trying to talk, you're on mute, owner.
This is Andy Grosco. I'm new to your whole organization, but I heard you say the trout move around in the summer. So what are the average water temperatures? Are they going above 70 degrees?
Yep. I've seen it. It's when we were actually shocking in 2017, it was 71 or 72. We don't have any, I don't know what the data is for it, but it does get above 70. I'd say it's-
I can supplement that as well. The monitoring data that we did for the existing condition, we saw a lot of good trout temperatures a lot of the times, but we did 15-minute data, and that swung at sometimes up to 85 degrees, and that's even in the upper Jones Falls. So they definitely move around to stay alive.
Yeah, and they're looking for those springs.
By springs and in spring water as well, in stream springs. So
yeah, so that's the downside of stream restoration. Right, and the downside with stream restoration is you lose that riparian buffer for about, I don't know, probably 15 to 20 years, and then it comes back. The trees in about 10 years will be, a lot of them will be 20 feet tall or so. And then in 15 to 20, you're probably getting that shading back pretty close to what it was before.
Okay, so your experience is the shading will bring that temperature back around. It might be the sun that's driving those temperatures.
Yeah, but
It
what you have,
depends, right? So at that spot, you're getting the thermal benefit of the shade at that spot. But if you have upstream a lot of open fields
Right.
and farm fields, it really just depends. But at least for that site, you're going to get the canopy back, which is going to help with returning that thermal benefit of cooling at that site. It really just depends on what your watershed is as far as your buffer coverage,
Okay, thank you.
but it helps.
For the record, Mark Staley at DNR has historically stated that Jones Falls is one of the most fertile streams in Maryland. It's got a remarkable amount of aquatic life, spring waters that come in. There are some very big fish in Jones Falls. Buddy Sonor said that there's a legendary tale of Jim Gracie between the two spans of the Beltway catching a 24-inch brown right there. So, you know, makes your blood run.
Good God.
Yeah. We have a board member, Stephen Wright, who caught an 18-inch brown not too far above this section. So they're in there.
And these fish are there by natural reproduction now?
They're there by natural reproduction. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Very good.
Inside the Beltway.
Yeah, And I know somebody that fishes downstream of the bridge as well and catches brown trout almost all the way to the lake.
Wow.
And you'll notice, I don't know if you guys fish Little Falls, but they're similar in color scheme. It's a lighter brown trout because of the sand that are in the stream. It's a lighter colored brown trout. Really pretty, like the one I caught in the picture.
Do you know if they're going to add more parking ever to the right side as you're going south in that area?
It's a great question. I did not know that.
Because historically, there was, back in Jim's day, they were talking about creating more access to the stream because, as you well know, it's hard to park along there. So.
I'll answer that. Scott Scarfone, who's a landscape architect he just retired from our board. He did do a study with parking on that side with all the necessary catchments and stormwater management, but that plan went nowhere. So,
Yeah, that's too bad.
yeah.
And back to Jim's day, how long a stretch was actually restored? How much stream?
Yeah, it was 660 feet.
Okay, thanks.